Kelly, I understand you have an interest in paper craft. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, Stephen. I have been doing collages and paper crafts for about 4 or 5 years now. Started out with a book on envelope making, and I've been doing it ever since.
Well, envelope making, what does that entail?
I find pictures that I like and use a template to cut them out in the shape of an envelope. And I find a separate piece of paper, usually handmade papers, to adhere to the back so that when the envelope is opened, you see the colored paper.
And do you add any extra decoration on top of the colored paper?
I usually use wax and stamps to seal the envelopes, and usually the photograph on the front is all the decoration I use.
Do you use any type of wax or a special wax?
It's a special wax. It's made for letters. You use a stamp. You light the wax, drip the wax on the surface, and then as it cools, you stamp it, and there's an image embossed on it.
Now, how about collage? I understand that you've done some paper cutting involving maybe a more artistic picture in the way of collage.
Yeah, I usually use magazines, newspapers, specialty papers I buy at craft stores. And each of my projects usually follows a certain theme. I make them specifically for people, so it usually is a very personal item that I make specifically for one person.
What would you characterize the topics of your collage as?
It's pop art. It's humorous. Whatever I feel like at the time.
Do you ever kind of venture to the dark side?
Sometimes, so those are usually for my own personal collection. I don't usually give other people those items.
So for gifts, it's probably better to stay on the light side.
Yeah.
Do you like, say, angels and that kind of imagery?
Sure. For some people, I have several aunts that are also into crafts and art, and I make things for them. And angels and hearts and lace kind of works for them, but I don't stick with just one sort of set of imagery.
How about the holidays? Do you ever do any specific work for Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, Halloween?
Yep, I do things for all of those. I made all my Christmas cards last year, and I made 2 sets of picture frames for family members using collage and decoupage. And I make place settings and table arrangements for all of the holidays, gift tags, bookmarks, wrapping paper, baskets, gift baskets, soap, potpourri, just about everything.
Just about everything?
Yeah.
Kelly, you mentioned decoupage. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, decoupage is like collage, but it has a thick coat of shellac on top.
I see. And can you put a whole lot of coats, or is it usually just one?
You can layer it and you can make it multi-dimensional if you want. It's usually used for jewelry boxes, end tables, furniture, things like that.
Have you ever used wax instead of shellac?
No, I've never tried that.
I've heard of people doing that. Now tell me, when you're about to create a collage, do you plan it all out ahead of time or just make it up as you go along?
No, I never planned it ahead of time. I have a file of images that I keep on hand, but I usually will go out and find new pictures, images, colors for each project, and it kind of comes together as I go along. Individual projects definitely reflect my mood at the time, and they're very representational of who they are intended for.
Where do you find your source material?
I buy papers, colored papers and patterned papers at craft stores, but I mostly find images in magazines, calendars, books and newspapers, things like that.
What type of magazines?
Fashion magazines are actually the best because they have the glossiest pictures, the most saturated colors, very popular images, celebrities and models and exotic locations.
Would you say you prefer photography over illustration?
I like them both for different reasons. I personally tend to like photography better, but illustrations are very good for certain projects.
I understand you also are interested in jewelry making. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I got into beading with my girlfriend when we were about 12, and we started real simple, just stringing beads on a cord, and I made, probably 100 necklaces, and got into more complex designs as I got older, but I just make jewelry for myself now.
Where do you find the material for jewelry?
There's some really great bead stores, and they actually offer classes and will show you how to use various techniques, but it's all about the tools. I have some really great set of tools for making jewelry, so as I've gotten more and more tools, different sets of pliers and things like that, I've made more complicated designs, but I buy all my beads from the bead shop.
Do you use magnifying glass or anything like that?
Yeah, if I'm using really small beads, but I tend to like the bigger, chunkier beads, large pendants and things like that.
Are they very expensive these days to buy beads?
They can be. Old-fashioned and retro beads are coming back, but you can also buy Swarovski crystal beads, Australian crystal beads, it's a whole range. Whatever you want to spend, you can find something in your price range.
Made of real crystal?
Some of them are, yeah.
Oh, that's great. All right, you brought a collage today. I see that it is a two-sided card. Can you tell us about this card?
Yeah, it's a thank you card for a friend of mine. I liked color, lots of color, golds and pinks, things like that, because those are the colors she likes. And traveling and all these things that I think of when I think of her. So that's kind of the theme of that card.
When you give people a handmade card with a collage, do they ever ask you, what does it mean?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Most people think that it has to have some kind of deep meaning, but for me, it's just fun. It's just I think of it as I go, so it doesn't really have a meaning to it.
If it doesn't have meaning, would you say it might have some symbolism?
I think they all definitely have symbolism. They represent how I feel at the time that I'm creating it and who I'm giving it to. They may take some kind of meaning from it when they see it, and it may be completely different from what I was thinking when I made it, but it still creates a feeling for the receiver of the gift.
If someone wanted to get into crafting, what would you tell them to do as a first step?
Books. There are huge sections of craft books at any bookstore. And any kind of craft you can think of, there's a book about it, and that's really the way to get into it, because it'll break it down, tell you what you need to get started, give you some ideas, and then from there, if you like it, it's nowhere to go but up.
Well, what's a good craft to start with, say in the paper area?
I think collage is good because it helps you learn about colors and textures and images and how to put them together and how they work well together. It teaches you about layering and patterns. It's very good, and it's very simple and inexpensive to get started in.
I see. How about the jewelry? Would it be easier to make earrings or a necklace, or do you think it matters?
It doesn't really matter. They're all fairly simple. There are books about it. There are classes you can take at most bead shops where they'll show you how to create different designs. It's very easy to get into.
I notice you're wearing a pretty pair of earrings. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, this is actually a new trend, and it's sort of found objects put together that don't necessarily go together. Very popular right now.
Where does a person find found objects?
You can find old-fashioned beads at vintage clothing stores, estate sales, online, and then different kinds of chains. All that stuff can be found at bead shops, and just putting kind of incongruous things together sometimes ends up looking really nice.
Is there anything you would like to say as we close this interview?
I think everyone should have a hobby, and crafts are a great hobby to have because it's very relaxing, and you might end up with something that you can give to somebody and they'll really appreciate it.